2024 House and House market report here in front of me. It is full of numbers, it's full of data. What I want you to tell me though, in a year where we have seen record after record after record, what do I need to be paying attention to? What actually matters?
What actually matters? I mean, Dubai, I think you agree that Dubai's been booming, right? The roads are full, the schools are full, Dubai's been maturing further. Obviously, sales-wise, over 500 billion dirhams worth of transactions in 12 months. It's a pretty huge number. Quite hard for us normal people to get our heads around. But yeah, I mean, generally, I think Dubai's going from strength to strength. The growth, quite exciting to see, is not being as aggressive as it maybe was back in 2007 or 2008 days. It's certainly a bit more predictable. Lots of communities seeing very strong price appreciation. Certainly, villa communities, and certain areas of the market.
Okay, I'm going to drill into that, but I want to know first, anecdotally, what does it feel like on the ground for your agents selling in terms of the number of viewings they have to do when they're selling a property, how long it takes to get something over the line? What trends have you noticed? I
mean, obviously, it's certainly a seller's market, isn't it? If you're a seller of, especially of a villa or a townhouse in Dubai in a prime community, you're going to be trying to push that boundary of what's possible. So recently we sold the most expensive 3 and the most expensive 2E, which are 2 different types of villas in the Springs. And I think that, so the market's certainly been pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Townhouses trading at like 6-7 million dirhams in some cases. From a few years ago, we'd have seen that's not maybe seen that's possible. So I think it's certainly a very exciting time for Dubai. And I think that in terms of the agents on the ground, sometimes if the seller's really trying to push the boundary too much, of course, the property might still sit there. It's not that everything's selling. Certainly, people are buying at what they feel is a fair market price, and I think that's something that we need to keep looking at.
Okay, well, we've got 30 communities in here that you guys, with Property Monitor, track.
Yeah.
Where have you seen some of the best performances this year?
Okay, so I think one of the standout communities was Jumeirah Islands. They've seen a price appreciation of 38%, which is huge in a year. Again, and with all these numbers, you need to dive into what's actually happening on the ground. And the reason for that is a lot of the properties there are older villas. They're a very nice location. They've got nice plots. They're quite a good size. And people are taking those, investors are taking those properties, they're renovating them completely, and in a lot of cases kind of changing the facade, really changing the look. So they might have taken what was originally like an Arabic style or with small windows and turning it into what looks like maybe like a Miami mansion or whatever. And I think that's where you're seeing, they're seeing huge value add, if you like, to that property.
What about for those who are investing to rent? Because you also have a look in yield in here.
Yeah.
Where has been the best place to do that?
So there's been communities, certainly, the cheaper end of the market, communities like JVC maybe, where you're buying a property for some cases sub $1 million dirhams. They tend to offer very, very good rental returns. Just purely because the property's not a crazy price, and the rents are quite strong there. You've got lots of end users looking to rent new quality apartments. You noticed a lot of people moving from developments such as Dubai Marina, from an older building to go into JVC, which some people say, why would you do that? But actually, if they're getting a new apartment, really nice facilities, maybe a brand new swimming pool and all these things, then people are doing that and paying a good price to rent there. So the returns you can see as strong as 7 or 8% net, which is very attractive. Obviously, then when it comes to Offplan, you look at investors, and very attractive, certainly on the international stage. If you told someone that in London, I think they probably wouldn't believe you. So.
You mentioned the off-plan market, and that has been, 70-odd% of sales.
Certainly almost, yeah, I think so. Huge number, right?
I love the fact that in this report, you've now got resales. Talk me through.
Okay, so we, again, the data is you've got to try and interpret it. So these huge numbers in the billions. For example, Emaar did around 65 billion in sales last year, as that was direct sales. If you include Emaar resales, the number went up to 102 billion. Which is crazy, crazy numbers. But it's just, so when you see this data come, it's good to have someone on the ground who, understands in real time what that actually means, rather than just a big number.
How busy is the resales market, and what kind of markups are people managing to get?
I mean, it depends on what you bought. Obviously, it does make a huge difference. You can't just go and buy anything and hope to resell it. I think that idea of flipping properties that we saw 10 or 15 years ago, certainly it doesn't really exist. I mean, you need to buy something that's a really, really, look at what you're buying, buy something that's quality, that's value for money. And we've identified a few places that we feel will grow significantly. And that's not based on, hopefully, if the market goes up, that's based on today's prices. So there's a lot of interesting communities that you could look at to make a big capital growth in the next few years. But you've got to be very careful because there's lots of things that, as we say, it's probably 90% we wouldn't buy and 10% we would buy.
Do you want to share with me some of those communities?
I mean, I think, some of the biggest developers, obviously the likes of EMAR have got a proven track record to make sure that they're building communities that are really, great for the end user, for the family to live in. Community I just mentioned Springs a minute ago. I mean, Springs is a 20-year-old community. The houses might need renovating, but the community itself is lovely and really well managed, and I think that's really important. If you're buying real estate, it should be a long-term investment. So buying, with the likes of EMAR or some of the really big developers that offer you community, they offer community management, is essential to that investment being better in 10 years' time than it is today.
What about the new communities that we're seeing come on? I mean, you're tracking 30.
Yeah.
That map is being redrawn at the moment.
Yeah.
The boundaries are stretching.
Yeah.
Which of the new communities for you are the ones to watch in terms of the numbers that you're seeing here?
Okay, so certainly Dubai seems to be moving with the new airport, lots going on around, Dubai South. EMAR South is on the other side of the airport, which currently feels quite far away. But then we've dealt a lot with Expo, which is on this side of the airport. So that whole part of town is suddenly becoming a bit more central. There's lots of new villa communities coming up, quite close to Jumeirah Golf Estates. There's Tilal Al Gaf is sort of ongoing and it's got lots of handovers happening. In that area of Dubai, we see a huge amount of growth. The EMAR are going very heavy in all the different segments. They've got townhouses starting at about 3 million. They've got villas starting at about 5, 6, and then they've got the really big mansions starting at 10 or 12. So they're kind of covering every segment of that market.
The million dirham question, 5 million dirham question probably,
Yep.
given that we are talking
Billion
about
dirham question maybe. Yeah.
Dubai property. I wish. Where's it going and how long can it last?
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, let's be honest, we've been in the perfect storm for Dubai real estate recently, haven't we? Last few years, we came at the back of a sort of slower period, should we say, which was sort of 2017 to 2020. And then I remember we entered 2020 and suddenly we had COVID to deal with. So during that time, the developers didn't sell too much. Now, what does that mean? If they don't sell too much in that time, if you add the 3 or 4 years of the construction process to that, we're currently at the end of 24, start of 25. So there's very little handing over at the moment. And that certainly has been. The number of units handing over the last few years has been small. So if you look at it, supply versus, supply and demand, the supply's been down and the demand's been huge. So we've been in that perfect storm. In the next 2 to 3 years, some of these properties will, the level of supply coming to the market of actual ready units is going to increase. So in 26, and then I'd see the majority of that supply coming in 27 and 28. So that's where we need to look to. And within the market, it's not as simple as we said before. Some villa communities have gone up hugely, and maybe some apartment ones have stayed flat. So it's not as simple as just saying, do you buy Dubai or not buy Dubai? You probably need to look at what you're buying within that market, and how many villas are there, how many townhouses are there, how many apartments are there, as a split of the total supply. So that's the kind of things we look into.
Is the population growth going to support the real estate market? And is the real estate market growing fast enough for the population growth? It's a chicken and egg question.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, at the moment, I think we increased, the official numbers again seem to vary a bit. It was about 150,000 people population increase in the last 12 months. And then we see that is even accelerating, if anything. So what does that mean in real time? I guess you have to work out how many people live in each unit. At the moment, the average is about 4. So if you divide 150,000 by 4, you need about 37,500, I think, is that right? My maths, units new units coming onto the market to maintain equilibrium between supply and demand. So that's been about the level of handovers last few years. Of course, if they're going to sell 120,000 units last year, if you add 4 years to that in 2028, there is going to be a lot of supply. And then the million-dollar question or billion-dollar question is, how many people would you need to fill up those units? So these are the kind of things that we can help people with and have really in-depth conversations to work out, that supply and demand, but also the supply within the market. So I think last year there was only 1% of the off-plan market was independent villas, which is quite telling, right? So only 1 in 100 was a detached home. And as Dubai matures and there's families moving here, that's probably their ideal property. So the demand in that segment is going to stay very strong, I think.
And that was Simon Baker, the founder of House & Haus, talking about what we've seen in the real estate market in 2024.